This is what we're going to be making today. It is not hard to make. Hello, and welcome back to my kitchen. Hey, today we're going to be making another easy weeknight meal. This is easy. This is lasagna. Now, you may have never considered lasagna as being an easy weeknight meal before. But what I want to show you right here, right now, is that this can be much easier than you suspect, and it can all be done from scratch. I know that sounds a little strange. Yeah, you mean fresh pasta? Yeah, fresh made from scratch pasta, a fresh made from scratch sauce, our homemade filling. We're gonna have a delicious cheese lasagna. It's a cheese and spinach lasagna. The pasta, please don't shy away from this. If you've never made pasta before, then this is your video. I guarantee you that. Because the pasta here, this is 4 ingredients. 4 ingredients, 30 minutes rest time, and you're ready to go. And it's not hard to do. So what I'm going to show you today is probably the easiest dish of all to learn to make pasta for. Once you get this down, this exact same layout of ingredients, the same recipe, will not only make lasagna, but you can make ravioli, you can make cannelloni with it. Excuse me, not cannelloni, manicotti. Cannelloni is a whole different thing. Now you can make a manicotti, you can make a beautiful ravioli with this, and it's all the exact same stuff. It's just how we prepare it, okay? So today it's going to be a simple lasagna, not hard to do. Stick with me. Before we get into the ingredients, I would please invite you to visit my website, and that's S.A.Trotter.com. That's where I have the recipes that I have already typed out and prepared for PDF. Really good quality recipes there, as well as my other merch. I've got shirts, caps, and stuff like that. So check out the Texas Cooking Today merch. It's all right there. I also have a Wisio, and if you don't know what that is, it's sort of like a Patreon. And if you don't know what a Patreon is, well, please take a look. My Patreon and my Wisio are there to help you out, and you can help me out, all right? And that's how you can help sponsor Texas Cooking Today if you're interested in doing so. Now, folks, please come this way. We're going to get started making the best tasting lasagna that you're ever going to eat. It's just so simple. Come on. The ingredients we're going to be using today, and it's very simple. Start right here with the pasta. Pasta is flour, eggs, salt, and olive oil. That's all there is in pasta. And when it comes to our filling, it's a simple ricotta cheese and spinach. We're going to chop that spinach up a little bit, stir the two together. That's our filling. I've got some more cheese here. It's a beautiful mozzarella, and this makes for a nice topping. So we're going to use that to top everything with. Now, our sauce, we need a beautiful sauce. So I've got some tomato paste here. I've got some oregano and basil and salt, a little bit of wine. Now, the wine you can take or leave, okay? Doesn't have to be in this. I like it because it gives a little more fruity, light quality to the dish. Other than that, that is all there is to it. It takes a little bit of time, but not much. Remember, this is a weeknight meal, so this is something we can pull together pretty quick. This starts with making the pasta, and then we move into other items, and it's all pretty basic. Okay, we start with the pasta. Now, folks, as I mentioned, this is so easy, and I don't want anybody shying away from making pasta. When I learned how to make pasta, it was just like my whole life had lit up because I knew all kinds of things were open to me. And when I realized how easy it was, I kind of felt foolish for not having done it sooner. All right, so I was well into my adulthood before I learned how to do this. And all it is you take your cup of flour, and it doesn't have to be perfectly measured, just a heaping cup of flour. And you can say, well, what size eggs? Well, guess what, folks? I'm using an extra large egg, and it's going to make my pasta a little wet. It means I'll just have to use a little more flour when I'm rolling it out. All right, now, it's about a half a teaspoon. Now, this does not require a pasta machine, but one of these things is most certainly handy. All right, now will you take our flour and make a well in the middle of it. This is where I'm going to put my eggs, and then I start working everything. So I'll tell you what, take a look down in the bowl and it'll give you a better idea of what's really going on. Now I want to take my eggs, just put them straight down right in the middle of the flour. Olive oil. All right, we're looking for roughly a tablespoon of olive oil, or maybe just slightly more. It does not hurt. Break those 2 yolks and beat your eggs right there in the middle of the flour. This is how to make an egg noodle, egg pasta. Now, pasta, when it's made in Italy, especially commercial pasta, they will usually just take plain semolina, which is not ground nearly as fine as that. The semolina is more like cornmeal in its texture. And then they don't use egg, they just use water, or sometimes very little egg. But they almost always use water in theirs, and it forms a much stiffer pasta. So if you want to try using semolina, please do. But I'll say this, it's going to require a little more work on your part. So just keep stirring until the whole thing comes together. Whoops, I think I had a little bit that went flying out. There we are. Now I'm wanting to get all of the rest of the flour in the bottom of this bowl mixed into this. So as soon as I do that, and I'll form this into a ball, then it goes right down into my little Ziploc baggie down here. Now something I want to say, before you handle pasta, go ahead and flour your hands, otherwise you're going to get a whole lot of this. You know, something like this. There we go. Yeah, sometimes I get a little messy, but it won't hurt a thing. Oops, get back up here. Now there is a couple of little tricks to pasta. And trick number 1 is, if you try to roll out pasta when you first make it, like right now, this pasta is really going to fight back. All right, almost got the rest of the flour. There we are. Now I can use my pasta even to clean up some of this. All right. So once I have that made, and it only takes a moment just to bring it all together, just like so. I don't knead it heavily, I just squeeze it a few times. Okay. There we go. Now, it's all good and clean in there. The rest of this goes right in here in this plastic bag. Now I can just wrap this up in plastic wrap if I want, that would work. There we go. I just need to clean up my hands and my mess and let that rest. It needs at least 30 minutes. All right, I have a saucepan here. I have the, there we go, tomato paste, yes. I'm going to be putting in this 1 cup of wine. All right, and I'm going to get this out of my way, exchanging it for a whisk, which generally makes this job just a little easier. Now at first, the tomato paste might resist a little bit, but it will take in all that liquid. Once it starts, it'll just happen real quick and smooth, like right now. Okay, so I'll tell you what, why don't you look over my shoulder here, and we'll, or this way. So you see we have a fairly thick product here. We're gonna have to thin this down a whole lot more. Now as for the use of wine, you can use it if you want, or you can leave it out if you want. So if you have any issues with alcohol, leave that out. If you want to use a non-alcoholic wine, feel free to try that out. It should come out delicious. I personally have never done it, but I've had plenty of people tell me it's good. All right, now I want about a teaspoon of oregano. Now be careful on that oregano because it really can quickly take over a dish. Basil, when it comes to a marinara, is a much more forgiving flavor, and you can be quite liberal with it. So I'm going to put in a couple of tablespoons. Also, I want to put in about a half a teaspoon of salt. In addition, we're going to need to thin this some more. Now, starting with 2 cups of water here, and we'll see what it ends up taking total. So I'm putting a flame under this, and it just needs to be a low flame. All we're going to do is just bring this up in temperature, get the flavors to marry. It only needs to be simmered for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we see this is still quite thick. Look, it's showing shapes in the top of the surface, and I want it to kind of flatten out and become more liquidy than that. I want this to be similar to a spaghetti sauce or just slightly thinner. And the reason is, our sauce is in part what's going to hydrate and cook that pasta. All right, so the amount of moisture in the sauce is quite relevant to the quality of the pasta itself. So you see it's still holding some shapes, but not as well. Add a little more water. Now, so far at this point, I have now put in 1 cup of wine and 1.5 cups of water. Now we're getting light shapes, but very liquidy at this point. I want to go ahead, add in the rest of this. That way I have what I need to hydrate the pasta, and then the sauce at the same time. That water's cooking into the pasta. It'll thicken this sauce right up in the dish itself. So there we have it. Okay, I've got a flame under this. It's going to come up and simmer. Just let it do that for a little bit as we turn our attention right over here to the filling. All right, we have that sauce made. Get a lid on there. Now when I start it, I'll cock the lid a little bit to help vent any early steam, which will be alcohol. This right here is the bowl we're going to do that cheese filling in. Here's the cheese. Sometimes I get lucky and the cheese just comes out. And today I probably won't get lucky though. This will be the magic day it doesn't happen. There. Come on now. You can do it. There we go. Usually you'll get a little lucky. And yeah, it looks a little weird, but when it breaks down, it's nice and soft and fluffy. It's a beautiful cheese. This, it's as simple as I need to chop up my spinach. And once I get it cut up, I'm going to put it right down there in that. Now, when it comes to doing spinach for lasagna, manicotti, ravioli, any of those, all right, when it comes to this cheese filling, don't get mature spinach. If you'll notice, what I'm using are a bunch of little baby-sized leaves. And that's exactly the perfect thing for doing a filling like this. And the chop on this doesn't have to be perfect either. Okay, you're just cutting it down so that it's going to fit well with that cheese. All right, look there. This right into the cheese bowl. Stir it together. All right. Now, the cheese filling, like anything else, ladies and gentlemen, it needs a little bit of seasoning outside of just the spinach itself. So we're going to put a little bit of salt in that. And again, not a whole lot. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon will be more than enough for this. You see what I mean by the filling would be nice and fluffy and light and soft. That's what we're talking about right there. So we got this beautiful, light, soft filling that's going to be perfect inside of a lasagna. Okay, I'm going to lower my temperature on that just a little bit. It's doing its thing. Everything is made. The pasta is resting. Now, about this resting the pasta thing, let me explain it. Because earlier I mentioned that, pasta can give you a little grief. All right, now if you make pasta fresh like what we've just done, and I take it, let's say right now, if I tried to roll it out, once I get it to a sheet this big, it'll shrink back up to a sheet this big. And I'd roll it back out to a sheet this big and it would shrink back up again. When I first learned how to make pasta, it was very frustrating because I was trying to make it immediately after I made the dough. I wasn't listening to chefs with experience who said, let it rest. Let it rest at least 30 minutes. Well, the first time I did that and I rolled out the pasta, I said to myself, you've got to be kidding me, because it was just that much easier. So don't sit there and fight this when it's freshly made. Roll it out after you've rested it and it'll be very cooperative, okay? It'll work with you. Just make sure you have plenty of flour to work with it, because at first it could be a little sticky, all right? It's not a problem. You want to get it, that flour on it, get it kind of dried out and workable. We'll roll it real thin. We'll see that in a minute. So pasta is not hard, just requires a couple of simple rules. Let it rest and then do what you want with it. So my pasta has rested for 15 minutes additional over the amount of time it took to make all of this, which was about 15 minutes. So it's had about a total of 30 minutes total. Pasta. Now pasta, very simple stuff, all right? As you've seen, it is not hard to make it, all right? You might say, yeah, but you haven't rolled it out yet. No, I haven't, but guess what? That ain't gonna be hard. I remember when I learned to make pasta, I was so relieved because it opened up a lot of recipes to me that I wanted to try, but I had been afraid of prior to that. Okay, so when we're rolling out pasta, it doesn't take but just a minute, and I'm not looking for a long strip the way you see those machines do it, a pasta machine, and that is not necessary to use a pasta machine. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, I do have a pasta roller. I also have spaghetti and fettuccine cutters. Okay, but I almost never use them because doing it like this, frankly, I get it done just as fast, or in some cases faster. Now right now I'm slowing down for your benefit so you can see this. Otherwise, I would be pretty close to done with this. So as you can see, it does like to shrink back up a little bit. It's going to fight you just a slight amount when you're rolling it out, but it won't be bad. Okay, just keep lightly dusting it with flour. Flip him over occasionally. That way you get a good even roll. And you can see how the backside took that flour in. Okay. And this is drying it out a little bit, and it's just making it a little more workable. Now I've got a little crease up here. I don't want that happening. Yes, this is more the way I would normally work with this. So generally this one recipe will give you a sheet of pasta that you can get out to about 2 feet. All right, and the size of 2 feet is the width of this board, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, well, roughly. But we're looking at a large round, okay? And at that size, you're looking at about a 1/16 of an inch in thickness. So if you want it to be a little thicker, you know, stop where I am about now. Okay, so this is where we diverge just for a moment. Pardon me for doing this. See how I fold this in half? If I was going to make ravioli, I would start just like what I've done here. I made a crease and I would paint a line here and another one here and another one here, and I would paint lines here coming down, and it would form a little grid, and in the middle of each of those spots I would put my cheese, all right? Cheese dollops in each one. Then I fold the top over, seal them down. Once they're sealed in between each of those, I then cut it out with either a wheel or a knife, and I burp each one to push out any air before finishing sealing the edges. That's how I do ravioli. This stuff is easy to work with now. Look, it's handleable. It's not hard to work with. It's not stiff. It feels like a really soft leather, okay? What we make our pasta in, it's just up to you. You can be as creative with this as you would like. You can cook pasta in a 13 by 19. You would do 2 of these, all right? 2 of these recipes. One of them will get you almost there, but 2 will get you a little extra, all right? This, what I'm doing here, I can take a ramekin and press it down just slightly, and it leaves me with this nice little imprint, and all I have to do is just take my pasta and cut where that imprint is. I'm really using the wrong knife for this, but it'll work. There we go. So I've got one. I'm going to cut a group of these to do these ramekins, and I'm also going to do some for these as well. These, if I'm going to do an au gratin dish like this, let me get a different knife. If I do an au gratin, then what I'm going to do, I'll push it right to the edges so I don't waste any, and I cut around the bottom of my au gratin. Okay, I'll show you why. So the inside of your gratin dish is going to be, of course, a little smaller than the outside. But if you cut just like I just did, it'll fill it just beautifully, all right? So give that a try. It makes doing these real easy. So I need some of this for these as well as for my ramekins. All right, it looks like I have everything done, okay? You know, absolutely none of it was really challenging. None of it was hard, okay? It was just all a bunch of little simple steps that all culminate into a beautiful end product. Now I'm just putting a little sauce into the bottom of each one of these ramekins. And I'm doing this in different kinds of dishes because I want to kind of demonstrate you don't have to always do this in a rectangular lasagna pan. You get options, you get choices. There's other ways of doing stuff. And this is one of them, okay? Isn't that nice? So lasagna, as with most casseroles, is just a matter of layering and building. And now that I've started this, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my oven. Now I'm preheating that oven to 325 degrees. Layer in 1 layer of pasta on top of what we've already done. This one I had to kind of make from some scraps. Sometimes you get to that point. There wasn't a lot of waste when it comes to the pasta. So here's where we enter our cheese. Now folks, this doesn't have to be pretty. Just get cheese down into the dish, all right? It doesn't have to be perfect. The layers can touch one another, all right? They're all gonna get baked up together, remember? And all I'm looking for is just a smooth, even layer, and it's gonna smooth it out in the oven. So what I've got here, as you've seen, I just heaped it in, nothing more. A layer of cheese. And that cheese, as I said, as it heats up, it's going to push out. Now at this point, it's time for our next layer of pasta. Just set them right up on there. It's easier with each layer, doesn't it? All right, now, once again, sauce. Remember, it's the moisture in that sauce that we are counting on to cook into the pasta and end up making it a nice, beautiful pasta that it should be, all right? And our topping cheese. How's that for really super cool? Not hard at all. Okay, here we go. Ready for the oven? All right, folks. Now, how long? I don't know. I haven't done this in forever. All right, so we're going to hit the start button and do our count up timer. Now, I'm at around 3,600 feet, all right? And this is a dish I don't make a whole lot, so I don't think I've made it here before. I've made this in Dallas, and normally it takes it about 30 minutes at a lower altitude. But I have a little more efficient oven here. Don't know, we'll see. It's doing a count up, and when that's ready to come out, I'll let you know. So what we're looking for, minimum internal temperature with a thermometer, 165 degrees. I'd like to see the cheese bubbly on top also. Now the quantity of all of our ingredients, and it depends also on how big of a lasagna you want to make, but you've seen what we've done today, and it produces a nice array of little lasagnas. Okay, so what I'm recommending here is 1 cup of flour to 2 eggs. That's a half a teaspoon of salt and about a tablespoon of olive oil. It gives you a beautiful pasta, as you've already seen. Now, our filling, very simple. We used 1 quart, 32 ounces of the cheese, that's ricotta cheese, and to it I just put in a large fistful of spinach, and it doesn't have to be really weighed out. You're just looking for a good amount of spinach, and if you want yours to have a little more or less, you adjust it. Now on that cheese, I started with 8 ounces of the shredded mozzarella cheese. On these down here, I used, on this one, it was 12 ounces of tomato paste, 1 cup of wine. To that, I added 1 teaspoon of oregano, 2 tablespoons of basil, a half a teaspoon of salt, and enough water to thin it to the desired consistency. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's all there is to this. Let's take a look at the finished product, see what we've got. Okay, I just checked. This is at 34 minutes. I think it's about to turn to 35. And I just checked in the oven, and it looks like the lasagna is finished. So we're going to pull that out, take a look at it. Oh, yes. That is beautiful. Now, when I said we checked that temperature, I wasn't just kidding around. Oh yeah, 168, 171, okay, we're there. All right, and that's all I need to know is that these are hot enough. And these are gonna be as well, because they're smaller in diameter than that, even though they're a little thicker. So it's all gonna be cooked properly. Right now, I just need to let it rest for just a few minutes. Well, there it is, folks. You've seen it done. It is not a difficult dish to do. I certainly hope you give this a try. I can't wait to taste it. Boy, I've been waiting for these to be ready and out of the oven. Oh, let me tell you. Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Very hot. Pasta is a perfect al dente. Delicious. The sauce thickened up beautifully. That filling is nice and smooth and creamy. It's got that beautiful ricotta flavor. The flavors are not overwhelming because everything was kept light and sweet and delicious. Please, please try this recipe. You are going to be thrilled with it. I am positive you're going to like it. Thank you very much for watching. Please do me a favor, look into the description box right underneath this. That's where the links are to S.A.Trotter.com. That is where I have all of my recipes. There's some good recipes there. Please check that out. Also, if you would, If you're interested in helping out with Texas Cooking Today, there's my Patreon and my Wisio are right there. Please take a look at those. Do me a favor, subscribe if you haven't done so. Drop some comments and a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And folks, please share this with your friends. You have a good day, all right? I have a date with a lasagna.